Hi everybody, Robin here at Toadstool Tarot. I'm up very early in the morning. It's just past 6 a.m. and it's still dark outside. My hours are really irregular. That's okay. Sometimes I spend long hours of the night up and thinking and doing things and not sleeping. And then I nap at odd times. Anyway, my mind is sort of racing and has been racing for the past several days over this issue. Over the summer, I purchased a number of decks, and I purchased a series of 4 decks from the same vendor. And even though this vendor on Etsy did not indicate that these were used AI technology, artificial intelligence, I could tell by looking at them and having seen previous decks that they did. And I bought them anyway because the images intrigued me. Now, I know in the tarot community there's a lot of controversy over AI, and I think it's well worth a deeper conversation or exploration, because I really feel like people are lining up pro and con about something that there's not a big enough conversation or even knowledge about, that we're sort of prejudiced or prejudging what AI is, or what we think it is, or what we think it should be or shouldn't be. And so I think it's something really worth investigating, if not communally or in conversation, then on a personal level. I don't know where to find more information about it, so I'm just gathering it piecemeal as I go. Now, out of those 4 decks, like I said, I knew that 3 were AI. The 4th one didn't fit all the earmarks of what I recognize as AI program or artwork. And so I thought, this is not AI. I guess maybe one of the biggest takeaways or upsets is that there's no legislation or regulation in terms of how one advertises something. And like when we buy food, they have the FDA indicating if they're what ingredients are in it, what makes up something we're going to consume, and whether it's dangerous to our health or not. The more information you have, the more helpful it may be if it's something you wish to know. These days, you look at the side of a box and there's so many ingredients and so many artificial elements in there that you don't even know what's what. And the print is so small that they just put it on there to legally get away with it. You really need almost a microscope to read it. But it's there. That's not something they're doing to a great extent with tarot. I mean, they give you usually the card measurement, sometimes the card weight, or what kind of card stock it is. They give you a little bit of background, but not in all cases everything. And now this new thing has arisen about using AI programs to either totally create the work or create it in collaboration with an artist or a person who may not have a great extent of artistic ability and may need the help of a program in order to visualize what they want to communicate. And there are so many things to talk about and think about here. I think one of the issues is, well, I should say before I get even further into this, the fourth deck that I didn't think was AI, over the weekend, a dear friend reached out to me by email and informed me that this deck too is indeed an AI deck, and pointed out some of the reasons why they spotted that it is, even though it doesn't look typical to me of an AI deck. And that is, I'm reluctant to even tell you which deck it is. Maybe I'll just wait and have you listen a little bit more before I share some of it. But I think some people have issues with the fact that artists aren't credited, or artists aren't being used, or work is being taken away from artists. Some people have very definitive opinions about that. They feel like they're taking shortcuts, or credit isn't given where it's due. That it's a fast buck somebody's making on a deck because they're not investing as much of themselves in it in terms of conception or physical ability or skill. Some people are investing some degree of themselves into it in terms of using the programs and putting in keywords and fidgeting around with the imagery and editing in the editing process, picking and choosing which images work for them. So there is some degree of actual human involvement in the creation of these decks. As far as I know, but I could be wrong, there's not somebody out there just clicking a single button in an AI program and saying, create me a deck, and it just cranks it out without any input beyond that. I think, oh my God, I should have made some notes here to follow, because my thoughts were very organized initially, and now they're starting to scatter. But that kind of makes me think about the whole what is AI? How are thoughts organized? How are images organized? When we buy decks, there are more than a couple of decks that originally came out decades ago. There are thousands now, conceived by different people, different minds, thinking different things, communicating different visuals. And ultimately what it comes down to is they're all visual stimuli. They're all images, no matter who or how they were created. They're presented to us in a system or not, say a tarot system, which we know, or an oracle system, which is maybe not a system, maybe an open system, or has its own system. And we're given these images, and then it's up to us to determine what those images mean. And it's a little bit like, I've used this word before, pareidolia. If you don't know it, I guess it's a psychological term, meaning man tries to make sense out of things where no sense is intended or even implied. For instance, if you look at clouds, that's an easy example. You look at cloud formations and see images there. You see a horse, riding across the sky, in cloud shapes. And you interpret that. Or like I used to do, I used to go to happy hour at bars and read beer foam bubbles that, gathered on the side of a glass or mug, and interpret those. Or people read tea leaves, Short of throwing that all aside and just going right with the system with a deck of playing cards, we have images that we're presented with in tarot decks that we need to decide how we feel about. And I think most people up to now haven't questioned that because these are works of art created by artists. But how important is that to you? Only you can make that judgment. For me, I enjoy and appreciate an artist's work. I don't glorify or idolize them. I appreciate that they put in the work and they deliver this product, and if it works for me, I thank them for that. But it really is a grab bag of images that either inspire you, you relate to, or you don't. And there's also many people who use tarot for many different reasons. Personally, I use it as a guidance system. I know a lot of people have a spiritual connection, like they believe they're communing with God or their gods or angels or some external phenomena that helps them, gives them messages. Well, remember that AI is also someone's invention, and the images that come from it, where do they come from? There's a program, yeah, but how does it make the choices? How do we know that those images aren't direct communications with spirits or angels or, whatever? Maybe they're even more direct than being siphoned through an artist to create these images. Who knows, It's all, and it comes down to language too. Like in the decks, you see these little images. It's like, that doesn't make sense to me, or that's a weird shape or image that is not in my language. And it comes down to communication and learning language in a new way. We have a new language to learn. And it almost feels like it's not quite there yet. It's to some degree, it's communicating with us, and to another extent, we don't fully understand the language yet, and it doesn't fully understand yet how to communicate with us. And so it's sort of, in a way, an exciting learning process. And I don't think we should be too quick to rush to judgment on this. Like I said, when it was first revealed to me that I do indeed have an AI deck here and didn't know it because it didn't fit the usual signs, I was crestfallen. But then I had to stop and think, well, why am I crestfallen? What is it about that bothers me? So this has really made me pause and consider this more. And like learning tarot, it's an ongoing process for me. I don't know why it still sort of bothers me. I can't fully accept or embrace AI, irregardless of the, political, economical issues or whatever. The fact that these images are cranked out in some way by a machine that is in whole or in part or not at all a collaboration with a human being. Why should I feel different about that than I do about an artist who has pulled inspiration from who knows where to create their art? Art isn't all logic. Art is, we don't know what art is. We don't know what makes human beings create what they do. Where does the art inspiration come from? Are we getting subliminal, subconscious inspirations? Are we enhanced or limited by our physical skill to put these down on paper, finding ways to communicate them with others? There's so much to talk about here, and I even considered trying to convene some kind of an online forum and invite some people to have a discussion over this. And I would like to get other people's opinions, but I'm not sure if any of them are informed enough yet to give them in a subjective, no, sorry, wrong word, objective manner. I feel like all the opinions at this stage are subjective ones because there's still not enough information out there. Also, what came up, I was thinking, it's funny, people reject AI art out of hand, and the idea of AI, the idea of artificial intelligence, technology in our human existence is scary to me. The fact that machines could take control or lead us into areas that are not in our best interest or that are safe for us. They're not the healthiest of things, but we have people every day leading our lives in government and politics and community that are not doing things in our best interest either. And where is their motivation coming from? So there's that. But I also thought, people will reject AI out of hand and yet totally embrace deferring to Siri or Alexa. So what do you make of that? They're allowing that into their lives. They're participating. They're collaborating with artificial intelligence, whether they admit it or not. And I was watching the other night the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. That came out in, I think, 1972. Was that like 5 decades ago or something? And there may have been movies before that, but I'm thinking about that and the computer HAL, which basically ran amok and took control and, murdered the inhabitants of the ship on the mission that it was on. And, that's artificial intelligence. And then we had the Terminator movie. So, I mean, that whole concept is really pretty scary. Because it's sort of like we like to feel as human beings that we're in charge. Even if we created these programs or these machines, we're in charge of them. We are in charge of everything on the planet, all life. We're superior. We're the only intelligent life in the universe. But the farther along we go, the more we find that's not really the case. Should we insist on being in control or in charge? Well, when we look at tarot cards, we're only in control to the extent that we know the system and we have a reference bank of identifications with symbols and images that we can translate them through the system and through these images we've stored away in our heads into meaning, something that's meaningful or will direct us. Another thing people argue about the human hand creating art. Well, think about things like collage decks, which people are buying. They're co-opting art from magazines or other sources that they're using. There are also decks that have aged out of copyright and are being reprinted or recontextualized and used. They're being co-opted. I don't know how many Pamela Coleman Smith decks there are out there, and just because she's no longer alive, people are totally comfortable with pulling her images and reformatting them in some manner and pushing them out there. And they're not, as far as I know, none of them are giving over any of their profit share to her estate, if her estate still exists. I don't even know. Or donating to charity on her behalf. You know, if what they're doing is a tribute to her and appreciating her original artwork, why embrace all these knockoff decks or recontextualized versions of her art that have basically taken her work that she wasn't fully compensated for even in her day, and they make millions and millions of dollars now, and none of that goes to her? Are we comfortable with that? Because she's not around to use it? Does it come down to concerns over artists who are making a living off of these, and there's a need to put food on the table and survive, and otherwise, if they weren't alive or didn't have that need, we wouldn't care? I don't know. There's a lot of questions here to think about, and I expect this video may be controversial to some degree, but I think it's something important to talk about, because it's put into the community some degree of unrest or uncertainty. Some people don't care about it. Some people don't think twice. They'll just buy a deck and not really think about it, and maybe that's a healthier attitude. I don't know. Maybe knowing about it gives some sense of guilt. I mean, when I found out about this deck, like I said, I immediately felt crestfallen, and then I felt a sense of guilt by association, because I shared this deck with others who shared interest and went and ordered the deck or bought the deck. I can tell you now, this is the deck. It's a vintage style deck on Etsy. It doesn't even have an actual name. It's Vintage Tarot, Vintage Art Tarot, Antique Tarot. I don't even know why. I mean, I can understand if it's AI why they didn't credit an artist's name, although they could have. Somebody put this together. I don't know why they didn't give it a specific title, why there would be an issue around that. But anyway, I shared this deck with others, and I was very excited about it. And even as I'm showing images, I'm thinking, well, that's odd. For instance, what are these? We have here the Queen of Pentacles. And what are those weird things she's holding in her hands that look sort of like some space fruit or vegetable, some sort of floating cactus, I mean, there are strange images here floating in the sky, and some might say, oh, those are just, imaginative creations, or the surrealists did all that. They just, stretched and reshaped things or invented things. It's an artist's imagination. But where am I going with this? I'm sorting through stuff in my head and trying to figure it out and how to explain it or how to talk about it. I guess these were little things when I saw them in the deck. I didn't immediately think, oh, that's AI, because the AI decks that I had are more amorphous images. They're stretched or reshaped or blurred. They're not really well defined. Like the images in here, in this deck, they look like, antique engravings or pen and ink. And I thought it was odd that they all seemed like consistently antique type images, but different source material. Like some of them have like outlines, and some of them are don't. They're more sort of painterly. And it's just something that I didn't connect with, even the idea of artificial intelligence. Like, look at this one, looks like a perfectly reasonable little engraving or illustration that's sort of a period piece, but why are the blossoms floating in the sky? Maybe that's just an imaginative creation, or maybe it's something that the AI program didn't fully understand and inserted there, that, why can't trees float, or, a shrubbery span the sky. I don't know. I'm trying to come to terms with this because I hate to dismiss this deck out of hand because it's got a connection with AI. Even though I have had some trouble up to now reading with the deck over the course of the weekend, my use of it has become easier the more I'm familiar with it and the more that I get to know the images and the symbols. And some portions of each card communicate to me and some don't. I know the tarot system well enough that I can read despite there being an image at all if there's a label on it. And again, I say, what this ultimately comes down to, for me anyway, is visual stimulus. If something is presented to me, it's a tool to unlock things in my mind so that I can interpret it and make some sense of it. And then if it's of value to others, communicate that to others. We use these images to unlock things in our mind or our psyche, and if they ring true of our modes of behavior, our morals, our ways of acting, our ways of existing, our ways of getting along in the world, and if they work in a way to help us understand, to better ourselves, rather than, lead us in an area where we do the opposite, then maybe it's okay, or why isn't it okay? I don't know. I still have a lot of unanswered questions, but I'm trying to sort of make peace with myself over this issue and find a way that lets me work with this in a positive manner, that I don't simply reject it out of hand without giving it more thought. I'm feeling a little bit critical of it, but at the same time, it's new, and it's like, should I dismiss other cultures and other countries because I don't understand their language, or the culture that language communicates, or their rituals and habits and belief systems? Should I just dismiss them because it's not what I'm used to or what I know? Maybe think about AI that way. It's not the English language. It's not North American. I can't even say North American because North America is so diverse with cultures and attitudes and things. I guess it comes down to what do you relate to? What can you pull meaning from? What works with your mode of operation? I don't know if I've said all I need to say right now. I think this is an ongoing conversation, and I would actually love to do a live where I'm not debating the issue with other people, but sharing their thoughts and ideas about this, because I think it expands understanding and appreciation for something new that's come down the pike, and something that we are very obviously going to have to deal with in one way or another, rather than simply rejecting it. I know that people have different tastes, different preferences. They like different kinds of decks, different kinds of artwork. Some people only like Marseille. Some people only like Rider-Waite-Smith. Some people only like oracles. Some only like animal decks. Some like herbal decks. Some like dark decks. Some like silly, fun decks. Some like mystery, intrigue. I tend to be drawn towards the eclectic, the unusual, things that look like they have some sort of unresolved mystique to them, this is all part of. It's like there are answers to this I don't have. The whole idea of there's something about the history of tarot that is very intriguing because it's not clear cut. There's mystery involved there. There's this notion or sense of magic somehow, of psychic connection, of witches, and special secret societies and private information. All that is tangled up in the history of tarot. And we all relate to it in different ways. So anyway, I'm going to stop here. I hope I've given you a lot to think about. And I really would love if you tag me if you do video responses or some share your thoughts about AI, artificial intelligence in general, and specifically to artwork representation in tarot and oracle cards. Yeah, I think I've covered most of my bases now, but there will probably be more questions coming down, coming my way, and maybe more answers, and hopefully more information. Maybe, after having viewed a dozen or a couple dozen responses, my mind will be expanded to the extent that I won't have difficulty with this issue anymore. Or at least if I have difficulty, that I can put it in a sensible perspective. No judgments here. But please, share your thoughts, not so much in the comments below, but because they can be very easily misinterpreted. And also I don't want to start a kind of a two-sided war, a pro and con kind of thing in the comments section. But if you do a video, that puts it out there for people to either have a look at and think about, or pass it by, pass it on. And I want to know what others think, and if others have more information about AI. I mean, I had trouble with this Three of Swords because they don't look like swords specifically, and then someone told me, well, the program doesn't really understand, and it knows the idea that there's a heart shape with three bars passing through in different directions, and then it just puts in its own information. There was another card here that really intrigued me from this deck. It's the Magician, if I can find it. Unfortunately, the stock on this deck is a little bit clumpy, so it's not quick to find cards in because they don't glide. But I was intrigued by the Magician card. If you'll bear with me and I can find it. Here we are. I love this Magician card, but you notice these weird artifacts or objects floating in the sky above the magician's head. They're strange shapes. I don't know if the camera is focusing enough. They don't make any sense. I mean, but does magic make any sense? I mean, it's energy transformation of some sort that maybe we understand, maybe we don't understand, maybe only the magician knows and we don't know. But when I saw that, I thought, well, that's a really weird artistic notion that the artist made, and pointed out to me, well, that's because AI did that. The artist didn't do that. But we don't know the instructions that the compiler of this deck gave the software to come up with. So maybe that was intended to some degree, or maybe if this is connecting with angels or spirits, they're sending this information through. I shrug, I throw my hands up, and I pass this along to you and see what you have to say. I'm going to let you go. It's probably starting to get light out by now. And I'll see you all soon, hopefully. Thanks for watching. Bye.